Have you heard? Metro by T-Mobile now includes Amazon Prime. Yes, enjoy the best of shopping and entertainment, movies, TV shows, music, free shipping, and much more. All included for just $40 per line for 3 lines. All on the T-Mobile network. Discover the smarter way. Metro by T-Mobile. That's genius. One offer per account. Offer subject to change. $12.99 per month value. Offer valid for new Amazon Prime members. Metro customers may notice reduced speeds versus some T-Mobile customers. Video at 480p. Capable device required. See store for details and terms and conditions.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Aquarian Radio at aquarianradio.com. I am your host, Janet Lesson, with my co-hosts, Karen Christine Patrick and Reverend John Polk. And today we are going to interview Laurie McDonald on the Experiencers Network. Today is November 6th, 2015. It is a Friday, and we're very happy to be here with you today on Blog Talk Radio at aquarianradio.com, part of the Aquarian Radio Network. So, John, are you there?
Yes, I'm with us.
Okay, with us. Could you start the show by telling us a little bit about Laurie McDonald's bio?
Absolutely. Clinical hypnotherapist Laurie McDonald, owner of True You Hypnotherapy, is the founder and organizer of the Sacramento Alien Abduction and Contactee Support Group. She is a graduate of the Dale Carnegie Effective Speaking and Human Relations courses. She is a member of the Sacramento Institute of Noetic Sciences and is on the mental health referral list for organizations such as Opus and MUFON. She has recently accepted an offer as a consultant to the research committee of the Edgar Mitchell Foundation Free, which is the foundation for research into extraterrestrial encounters, and is a team member on the upcoming Fox Channel series Experiencers. Laurie is ACHE accredited and has been a certified clinical hypnotherapist since 1995.
Okay, I'll do the second part. Her life's passion has been working with experiencers, helping them gain insight and balance. She teaches life skills for self-actualization and conducts personal empowerment workshops. True You Hypnotherapy is a BBB, Better Business Bureau, accredited business and has been a 3-time winner of the Sacramento's Best of Award for Hypnotherapy Services. And there's more about Laurie on our website at aquarianradio.com. So before we bring on Laurie, John, do you want to tell our listeners a little bit about who you are again? Just because we've been on hiatus. You were on yesterday, though, but
yes.
Just for this audience, just a different audience for the Experiencers Network.
Sure. My name is Reverend John M. Polk. I'm an international metaphysical minister. I received my education in metaphysics from the University of Sedona. I'm a Reiki Master Teacher. I'm the founder of Wolf Spirit Ministries, which is my ministry. And I'm the author of the book, Yahweh, the Biblical God, is an Alien, who was actually edited by my editor and publicist, Karen Christine Patrick, who is one of our co-hosts on the show tonight.
Go ahead, Karen.
Yeah, I'm an editor of Sean Polk. The Yahweh, the Biblical God is an Alien. Great book. I know it inside and out by this time. And I'm also now currently editing an autobiography by Dr. Ken Johnston, who is a whistleblower for NASA. Watch for that to come out soon. And I really enjoy that. And my partner and I are progenitors of the Lunar Anomaly Research Society and the Earth Anomaly Research Society. And I also work with I've started other and am an admin for other Facebook groups. And I was also an admin for the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters, and it's a really fun, growing group of experiencers. It's by experiencers for experiencers, so find us on Facebook, free, FREE.experiencers. And I'm a co-host on Aquarian Radio, one of my proudest tasks to be a co-host of. I'm an experiencer myself, and I've got all kinds of questions for Laurie tonight.
Excellent. Laurie, welcome to our show. And would you like to say anything else about yourself for our listeners that we may have missed in your bio?
I'm currently writing a book called The Extraterrestrial Interference, and I've recently enrolled at Harvard Extension to study astrobiology.
Oh, that's
excellent. Well, we're going to go round robin here asking you questions, and so it's between you and Karen and John. Who wants to go first? Raise your hand. Can't see you here.
I'll go first.
Okay, good.
Okay, so you have a practice in Sacramento, which is called True You Hypnotherapy. And I was going to ask you, tell us of your most profound experiences as a clinical hypnotherapist working with experiencers.
Wow. You know, almost every experience I have through hypnosis working with a experiencer is profound, frankly. You know, they're able to move into an area of the subconscious mind and get something like a 360-degree view. Even if a person has total recollection or believe they do, there's also extra senses that are involved that sometimes don't come across in the telling of the experience, such as olfactory or perception even. There's a lot of other senses that people become aware of in the hypnotic state when they're recovering. What I love to see most, though, is an experiencer who has had what is seemingly a negative experience where they've been terrified through the abduction of maybe one of the 5 extraterrestrial races that are the current abductors on the planet. I like to see them gain their personal power back, learn to stand in their own strength, and really move on from it, gaining a larger reality and, in fact, an expanded consciousness.
Is there anything else to follow up to that question, John?
If you wish, go ahead and tell us about your practice, True You Hypnotherapy, out in Sacramento, California.
Well, like Janet mentioned, I'm a mainstream practice of Better Business Bureau-backed hypnotherapist, so I do all the clinical hypnotherapy. I also do a lot of interesting work in the spiritual warrior arena. This has been new to the practice over the last while, where I have people coming to the office, and their issue is they're struggling with basically reality. They notice things are changing. They see chemtrails. They understand them to be chemical trails that are being sprayed, and they feel powerless, helpless, unable to understand and comprehend the situation. So they seek help. I see people coming because of political reasons, all kinds of other reasons, but basically what it comes down to is they're questioning the world as they know it. And what I believe is they're just experiencing growing pain as they adjust to a higher understanding of their place on the planet.
Would you say that?
We're getting a little bit black. Got that. Let's. If you're not asking questions, perhaps you can mute in between, so we don't get as much noise. But Karen, go ahead, take it away. Do you have a question?
I was really interested in your Sacramento Alien Abduction and Contactee Support Group, because the Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters, a free group, is kind of a newer group. We're catching up on some online resources for people. But can you tell us about that group And then I just think that's amazing that these groups exist and have been going on for a while, because I've never had one in my area. So I'm very interested in how people get those going, and how have you grown spiritually by meeting individuals. And what have you learned along the way working with contactees and experiencers?
Wow, that's a great question. Initially I had a small group of people back in the early 90s, in 93 through maybe 96, and they would come to my home and we would talk about our experiences or our UFO sightings, but it was all very covert and it was completely different. People were afraid and they didn't really mention it outside of the group. Now, of course, I advertise online. I have well over 100 members, and I have a monthly meeting. I do about 25 to 30 people at a time, because it is a support group, so we want to have ample time for people to share their experience. But it's been amazing. What happened a couple of years ago, I was sitting in my dining room, and just out of nowhere, it occurred to me how much people suffer as they struggle to understand the experience and how it affects them, how it affects their life, their friendships, their relationships, their consciousness, really everything gets questioned. They question their own sanity even. So it occurred to me that I was in a very unique position to offer a support group. And I do offer this free of charge. There's never been a cost to attend. This is my sort of community service, I guess. I think that being able to watch people feel connected, feel grounded, feel like they can share freely and easily without ridicule, it's a very beautiful and loving thing. And because of that atmosphere and that energy, we're able to get deeper into the experience. What I have noticed is an increased ability for psychism and telepathic increase among the members as well. I think that because of the bonding, even though the experiences are different, because of the bonding, they're able to relax enough into their own emotional bodies that they become heightened intuitively as well as other senses.
I have a follow-up comment about that, because I appreciate what you're saying about the relaxed into the experience, because I was one of those people that pushed it away until I couldn't anymore, and I didn't really have a support group to do that. And I'm just wondering if you want to start one in Albuquerque anytime, I'll hook you up.
You know what? I used to live in Albuquerque. I finished school in Santa Fe, and I lived in Albuquerque while I was finishing to become a clinical hypnotherapist. I lived up near the base of the mountain near the tram.
Well, I went to the Albuquerque MUFON one-year meeting and got to talking to several experiencers there. And we all live close enough together where, boy, it'd be fun to start one of those. Wish we had a professional guide like you. But this feeling of wanting to get together and share experiences is so validating. And it's amazing people get the same messages and the same kinds of, we discover we have more in common with each other than maybe we had in common with, definitely members of our family, people at school, people at work.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can share, the experience and really have somebody understand what it might feel like to have that face-to-face, intense, eye-to-eye contact from a totally lucid cognitive state with an extraterrestrial. And if you haven't had that experience, or if your experience varies from that, then it's very difficult. This is the defining difference. A person's reality is different. An experiencer's reality is different from a non-experiencer's. Their reality encompasses beings that exist outside of our ability to see or hear, or beings that exist on other dimensions or other planets, or all of the above, most likely. So when you change your reality is larger, and with that, that's where the consciousness really begins to have that expanded feel, where you begin to view things on a much larger scale. You don't just look at yourself as being, say, from the planet Earth. You look at the earth living in conjunction with the sun and the moon and the rest of the solar system, and you begin to see life spreading out through the cosmos, and you feel that galactic connectedness. It's profound.
Exactly.
Thank you. I want to interject something here. You were talking about your early experiences with creating groups. I was a founder of the UFO, Penn State UFO discussion group, and we would show a film or something every week, and then we got into these very interesting experiencer-type conversations, and some of those stick with me to this day. What we noticed is we wished we had a professional there that could help us go deeper into the process, because back in the late 80s and early 90s, a lot of people were having strong fear-based type encounters because they didn't have any other place to, a referential point. They couldn't explain it, they couldn't rationalize it, and we didn't have a therapeutic presence there to help them cathartic and reprogram and adapt to what was going on. So that goes back to, I forget who said, John and I were talking earlier, like, how do we get these groups established in our parts of the world? I'm over here in Maui, Hawaii. John is in Orlando. Maybe I shouldn't out where you are. John is where he is. Sorry about that. I think you're out where you are, and Karen's where she is.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's okay. I know everybody's having experiences, and we're not the only ones in our own neighborhoods. So, Laurie, how would you recommend now, in this time, the best way to get a local group established?
I would go on to your local meetup and open a group just like that, and make it very clear what your group is about. If it's an experiencers group, make sure that it's understood that it's an extraterrestrial, or contact the experiencer group, because I believe there is a difference. Some people never see an entity, yet they feel that their consciousness is hijacked, per se, or they feel that they've traveled and saw things, but they only feel an entity. They never actually see one. So any contactee or physical face-to-face experience, I would just make it clear, open the group, and watch them come. I opened it, and in no time, the meetings just grew and grew, and there was a point where I was like, okay, I've got to cut these RSVPs off. I can only handle so many people at a time. And they said, no, we're coming anyway. I said, I'm out of chairs. They said, we're bringing pillows and sitting on the floor. And I thought it was because I served snacks, but I do. I serve coffee and snacks. I make them very comfortable, so comfortable that, they'll come with a pillow and sit on the floor regardless of what I say. So, but that, you see, is where the need is. That really shows that there is a need for it. And somebody with experience who not only an experiencer themselves, but working within a group or a private practice. Like you mentioned earlier, I'm on the MUFON mental health referral list for extraterrestrial abduction. So I have a lot of experience, and I've literally heard thousands and thousands of testimonials. And a lot of them do have pain attached to them. And so these groups allow people to explore and learn. And in fact, really, ultimately, gives them the ability to self-actualize, to gain that personal confidence in this experience that they've had, and really allow it to trickle through the rest of their life so that they can create the life that they want to live. And I can guarantee you, the life that they want to live is of higher-minded thinking. It's truly peaceful, truly altruistic, where they're really understanding that whole self-love, self-acceptance. They understand the power of thought. And, with a lot of these experiences, a researcher like myself can't help but also question, how much of these experiences do we draw to ourselves through our own personal vibrations or our personal thoughts, or perhaps or even our past thoughts, past life thoughts. I mean, we don't know how much of that energy lingers with us, so it's very difficult. So it's when I advocate to all experiencers that they become adept at meditating. Nobody's ever perfect at it. Just practice every day. Keep that attitude, oh boy, I get to practice. There's no pressure there. Then you just get to practice meditation, and this will allow you to be able to control your mind, and in doing so, control your thought process as well as your emotional energy. It's very healthy. And these experiences with meditation can really give you that overall feeling of calm through them so that you can accept it easier.
Okay, we're just going round robin here. John, you're next, and then Karen's after you.
Okay. So go into detail regarding UFOCon, being the keynote speaker and the group meditation experience. But before you do that, I was the opening speaker at Experiencers Speak 4 in Portland, Maine on August 28th of this year.
Lovely.
And I conducted a guided meditation where I had all 79, for the most part, experiencers in the crowd hold hands, close their eyes, and I basically went through a breathing kind of exercise. Breathe in the universal God light, exhale all the lower energy. And we went through the breathing kind of regiment and got into a happy spiritual place. And then I said something to the effect that E.T. is in the room right now. And I can actually see E.T. in the room right now. Show of hands, how many people can actually see E.T.? And out of 79 people, I was really surprised. Only 4 people rose their hand. After the fact, I went on with the guided meditation, and I said, E.T. is in the room right now, and I can see E.T., but I'm not special, and I'm not unique. We can all see E.T. if we learn how to traverse our body, mind, and spirit and raise our vibration to a higher frequency so that we can actually see into the dimension in which they dwell. And then I went on to say that my goal of this weekend is for somebody who's never experienced anything at all to experience some kind of contact for the first time, and or an experiencer to achieve contact unlike they never did before in their life. I said it's either going to happen during my presentation, before the end of tonight, or by the end of tomorrow night, concluding with Travis Walton. So the first night went on, and nothing really happened. The second day was a very long day. As you know, these conference days are very, very long. And finally, Travis Walton is being introduced by Jennifer Stein, who's basically his media specialist, sales and marketing media specialist. And she does a brilliant job. And I happened to sit right next to her at the conference. And right when she started to finish her presentation about Travis introducing his new DVD, these 4 visitors walked in with money in their hand, and 2 of them had gray skin. Whoa. And there must have been anywhere from 12 to 15 witnesses of this event, which, and it's been blowing up on internet radio. I've done probably 20 some odd radio shows, mostly regarding those visitors at the conference. So getting back to my initial question, I know that you were able to connect with Janet and others at UFOCon, and that you were the keynote speaker, and you also conducted some kind of group meditation experience. Can you explain that to us?
Yeah, I ran 2 experiencer groups, and did one full, after I did my presentation, I did the guided meditation, and what I did was a little bit of breathing exercises, definitely, to calm the emotional body, but what I did was sort of a balancing of the chakra energy from the crown chakra down to the root, just sort of a clearing, allowing people to sort of move out to negativity, enhance the communication chakra and the heart chakra so that they could speak their truth clearly, confidently. So each was different. I mean, the experiencers group one in the morning, we did work with a little energy. Energy is extremely important. And so we were testing the polarities in the body and allowing the group to create a ball of chi so that they could feel the pulsing of it in their hands, expand it by moving their arms and hands out, which is very empowering as well, actually. So just to learn the energy so that you can, the idea behind it was so that we can become more aware of both subtle and gross energies as we learn how to sense and feel our way into viewing alternate dimensions and realities.
Wow. I just learned a couple things from you.
Oh, good.
You can always tweak your guided meditation, you know. You can always tweak it. You can always add to it by just listening to other people that do it as well. And everybody's got their own style, like you said. I don't think there's necessarily a wrong way to do it unless your intentions are wrong. But, you know, the whole clearing the chakras, I need to incorporate that early within my guided meditation.
Yeah, I think that it really helps sort of set them up and remove any negative thoughts or any sort of self-defeating thoughts, you know, that sometimes experiencers get nervous at the last minute and they're like, oh, this is just a bunch of craziness, and they get all upset, and so it allows them to sort of move away those thoughts, because those are all just from the, you know, judgmental conscious mind, not their truth, their true self, their authentic being. So we try to work with the authentic being, the true self inside, and sort of allow that emotional energy, which is only 10% of the mind, to sort of diminish, become balanced.
And if you wish, talk about UFOCon.
UFOCon, the Experiencers event, was the first annual one here in Sacramento. It was put on by Laurie Fenton and Javier Sandoval. And they had a Spanish-speaking night for the first time. As most experiencers know, our Mexican neighbors, that community is very largely interested in the phenomena. They have lots of flap sightings. They have lots of videotaped sightings. And so there's generally overall a larger social acceptance of it than it is here in the United States. So incorporating, being that we're on the West Coast here, incorporating a Spanish night seemed like the thing to do, so that some presentations were done just in Spanish. So that was a little bit different. They also incorporated some Tibetan singing bowls, sort of for the same reason, to clear energy and to calm the people. But like the event that you were at yourself, John, this was an experiencers event. This was an opportunity for not only professional speakers to get up and speak, or researchers and so forth, but people who have just been experiencers. And one of the experiencers presentations that I thought was very unique and beautifully expressed was done by Juliana Okawa, and she is not only a master violinist, but she also is a master painter, which happened during contact. During contact, she believes she was taken to perhaps the fifth dimension, where she interacted with these beings who she refers to them in terms of not extraterrestrials per se, but really more like celestial beings, angelic in a way. It felt like heaven to her, and she told them that she wanted to paint. And the next day, without lessons, without anything prior, no knowledge, no one in the family, nothing like that, she became a master painter. So she would stop during her presentation and pick up the violin and then play the music that she heard in these spheres or in these other realms.
Cool.
And it was absolutely beautiful. It was the most unique expression of extraterrestrial experience I have yet to see, and it was lovely. The whole event was different. We had different speakers coming from different ways of thinking, but we all have the same, we're all basically saying the same thing. It all has to do ultimately with the highest vibration of love and getting control of the fear, understanding fear. You know, fear is just, again, like a growing pain. It's something we can handle. It's not pleasant, but it also doesn't last forever. It's just something that we can move through. So the whole Sacramento UFO Con was a pleasure ultimately in the end to do. And I'd love to do it again.
I was there
and you
well.
got to visit with Janet. Yeah.
We got to visit. We had a great time. And Dr. Lesson, my husband, was there as well. And we had 3 different experiencer sessions going. Barbara Lamb was the 3rd facilitator, and Dr. Lesson was in one group, and then Laurie had her group, and then we combined Laurie and self and Dr. Lesson. We combined our group on the final night. So it was powerful, very powerful. There was a fellow that was going through a major process, and it was a delight to be a part of his witnessing that.
He was
and
as
everybody
raw
contributed.
as experiencer gets.
And yeah. I wanted to give Karen a chance to speak. Karen, there is some interference. I don't know if you have a mute button on your phone, but I've got you back live. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. This is
okay, yeah, I'm sorry. There's something. I don't know what it is, but I've been playing with the on-off mutes on everybody's, and when I turn yours off, it goes away. So I think it is coming from there. So after you are done with your question and answer with Laurie, perhaps if you could mute, and I'll just go around and pull you back on, unless there's something else you can do. But anyway, back to the show. Go ahead, Karen.
Okay.
Take it away.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I can't hear anything, and this happened before where it was on my line, so I don't know what kind of energies follow me around, but there you go. Yeah, my question, I've had probably a couple of abduction experiences I don't remember well yet, but I've had totally switched on telepathic experiences as well as significant automatic writing experiences, and those are, literally things coming through me, either in automatic writing but even voice channeling. And so that just kind of switched on me in 2009. And I was wondering if you could talk about if you've had people have those kinds of cases and issues, because we're kind of, maybe we weren't visualizing or we weren't taking ownership that we could remember, but we're having very significant telepathic contact. And I was wondering if you had any experiences about that as you've been doing your groups. And I'll mute myself.
Oh, yes. I have a very varied experiencer group. We have contactees who receive downloads. We have contactees that just receive messages, voices in their head, really. They're interesting. We have to be able to differentiate between a voice in the mind and true extraterrestrial telepathic contact. We have to be able to rule out things such as psychotronics, mind control. All of these things we have to look at when somebody hears something. There's a protocol one must follow to determine, in fact, that what you're communing with is indeed an extraterrestrial. So we do have people that just receive messages. We have a group of people that have also been taken aboard craft where they're very integrated in their extraterrestrial life. They've had a lifelong relationship with these entities. They basically have a job on the craft where they report certain developmental abilities of humans, sort of where our consciousness is at. They're like monitors in a way. Very interesting. Some have more mundane jobs where they just sort of file reports. And I find that's very interesting. But they say that the beings on those crafts are very tall, humanoid, but around 8 or 9 feet tall. Now, they're full-on contact. They have total lucid cognitive recollection of these experiences. They sense when a craft is going to come, and I suspect that perhaps they may even be hybrids. So within the contact phenomena and the abduction phenomena, I myself have broken it down into 5 different categories of experience. This allows us to not only help the person, but it gives us the ability to do some type of psychological profiling on the extraterrestrials. They do seem to know quite a bit about us, and I feel that it's important that we learn as much about them as possible, in particularly how they respond and react, and based on the compilation and testimonies of all the experiencers, what we might expect, say, if we come into the presence of particular ETs. Maybe it's a gray or a tall gray or a blue. Maybe it's a mantis. Maybe it's a Nordic or a Pleiadian-looking one. Maybe it's a drone of such Nordics and Pleiadians. People have a hard time differentiating. Since there's such an abundance of these different experiences, and to make it even more complicated on top of that, we have to weigh into it the geographical and cultural differences in the way one expresses their experience. So within the United States and Canada, an abductee, for instance, generally reports beings such as short or tall grays. They often see hybrids of human reptoid and human gray, usually human tall gray, not the short ones. And so this is how it's reported here. Now, in Mexico, South America, Brazil, down through that area, we see that the creatures are more apt to be reported, such as like a chupacabra, or perhaps something that would resemble like a Bigfoot. And so with all of these different things, whether it's just straight up telepathic communication or downloaded full-on visual or being taken aboard a ship willingly or being abducted against one's will, all of them based on many different things are important in how they express. Most likely an experiencer from, say, Australia or the United Kingdom or New Zealand, they're the ones that talk more about Nordics and Pleiadians, the tall, beautiful blondes, so to speak. So because it's complicated, I found it necessary to break down some type of psychological profiling after I created 5 distinct categories for experiencers. You'll find those in my book as soon as I finish. I'm about 3 months out. So the whole phenomena is more complicated, and we have to be very careful that we don't put ourselves in a position of needing to be saved because of our savage ways. I think that at this point in history, this is a monumental time. More than ever before, we are ready to raise up, to take that next step, but with integrity and with responsibility, not turning our power over to some other entity and saying, save me, because any entity coming would want us to be self-sufficient, to be grown up. That's what it's all about. And I think that we need to start accepting things on larger scales pretty quick here, not only as a country, but globally as a human nation, that we are not alone and that we needn't fight among each other. That is detrimental to our evolution. That time, it's in fact time now for us to gain this connectedness where we are one, can still maintain our individuality, but we can understand that there's a larger oneness. And I'm hoping that eventually the whole extraterrestrial phenomena will just facilitate or be a catalyst to our personal growth as a human race.
Thank you
Laurie,
very much for that. Thank you.
Oh, go ahead. You can finish. Do you have other things you want to say, Karen, and then I'll...
No, I appreciate her speaking to the diversity of experience, because that's one of the things is nobody's having situation where that experience they have is valid and somebody else's isn't. We're dealing with diverse cultures that are extraterrestrial, and we're also dealing with our own diverse cultures. And so I appreciate that you've broken that down into different sets of experiences going on. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank you. I mean, because you find that some experiences are totally physical. They're abduction, perhaps it's harvesting of genetics, ovum and sperm, perhaps for the hybridization of a human gray. But then we see that there's other abductions which are just consciousness, and a person is put through more of a psychological testing. So because they're so varied and diversified, I do think it's important. This way we can speak to each experiencer and have a place to start with them.
Laurie, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more about your own experiences. Have you had any, and what kind did you have?
Oh, yes. I'm an experiencer. I have always felt something from the time I was very little, about just 3. It wouldn't have been unusual for a family member to find me late at night out in the backyard with my head tilted back. My eyes would be just wide and intent on the sky, and I could truly sense, this magnificent presence, and I would just stare and wait. And maybe by 5 or 6 years old, when I started to question things like God, and because my parent and grandmother started taking me to church, I started to think about it. When I was alone, I would get this perception and this loving energy around me, and when I looked to where it would always appear in this like fluorescent, beautiful violet color, silver or 3, always me, and always guiding. And by the time I was older, maybe puberty and a bit older, I really started questioning whether it was extraterrestrials or angels, because they seemed so loving. And that is when I started having more of an abduction experience, where extraterrestrial grays would try to lead me away or bring me somewhere, and I knew that they were speaking telepathically. I could sense them speaking over me or around me, and I couldn't understand it, and that was frustrating to me. But by the time I got into my 20s, I was much more in control. I had started meditating and gone to seek the assistance of a Buddhist master at a temple, and for 5 years I practiced meditation with them. They taught me how to control my mind, my thoughts. Oh, the Buddhists know all about extraterrestrials and other worlds. It wasn't unusual for me to speak with the master and have them tell me, yes, that's fine, Laurie. Yes, those are this type of being from this world. And I would be like, what? How come the rest of the world doesn't know this? And so they really aided me in learning not only to control my thoughts, but they had a calm acceptance of things being much larger than most people knew. And that helped me walk sort of with one foot in each world. But even though I ran the experiencers group and devoted decades really to understanding, it wasn't until I was over 50 or just 51 that the phone rang one day, and it was a call, and she said, Laurie, I'm your mother, and I think it's important that I tell you the story of your birth before I die. She said, I wrote it all down back then in the fall of 1963. She had just seen me on a TV show speaking about extraterrestrials, and I put the phone on speaker and I called my husband over, and she said for the full 9 months that she carried me, almost every night she was being abducted. And then on the 18th of September, as she sat in the lounge chair out near the apple orchard in the morning, two beings just instantly appeared on either side of her and led her through the apple orchard into the clearing where the tractors turn around for harvest. And right above the tree line was a UFO, and instantly she was upon it. When they tried to calm her down, they always used the same thing. They reassured her by telling her she had nothing to fear, that their only interest was in the baby. They just needed to check on the baby throughout the whole pregnancy. After a very long abduction and full examination, and even she believes she was implanted another time during this particular episode, she was found about 20 feet from the back door of the house, bleeding, both nose and vaginally, in full labor, and was taken to the hospital where she gave birth to me. She sadly couldn't keep me because it scared her so much. She talked to her doctor about the abduction phenomena. He told her, just shut up because we're going to put you in the psychiatric hospital. It's hormones, it's this, it's that. And then me, I couldn't breastfeed or drink cow's milk, and I may have been the first soy baby in Canada, I don't know. But they tried everything. I had a difficult time with the food, and eventually she just gave up on raising me, and I was made a ward of the court where my grandmother took me. And so I had seen my mother maybe a handful of times throughout my life, but not in decades. And so I was surprised to get this call. And then I thought, my God, here is probably one of the experiencers suffering the most I've ever seen. Here she has kept her secret for 50 years, totally afraid to come forth. Her life was completely affected. She gave away me. I had no idea, of course, mind you. I lived for the full 50 years not knowing what her experience was, but yet here I was helping the very people like her who were affected by that. And I had no idea, and she had no idea. And so, well, you deserve the chance to speak your truth without shame, without ridicule, without the threat of being locked up in a psych ward, and, come on to this TV show, Experiencers, and speak your mind, speak your truth. And so she got a hold of the producer through me, and we arranged it. And just before the show, she suffered a brain aneurysm and a stroke, which left her unable to speak. That was so difficult. I was like, this can't really be. 50 years she waited. And we tried to get it together, and she did survive the surgery. And she is going to eventually speak at one of these experiencer conferences, I hope to God. But the producer of the show, Experiencers, released the trailer to the show on the 2nd of September. And on the 9th of September, he was found dead. He went to bed healthy with his wife, and he never woke up. And the headline read, "It was a mysterious death. Experiencer group leader and Experiencer TV show producer Jim O'Connell died mysteriously." So she lost once again an opportunity to speak. So my own personal experiences are not my own, as it seems. They are generational. I asked my mom, I said, wow, what are you telling me here? Am I your baby? What are you implying? And she only could say, she didn't know for sure. She was pretty sure I was human. But she thought that it was quite amazing that she was able to give birth to such an enlightened being. I kind of had to laugh to myself that she referred to me as a being. At this point, I would have preferred her called me a daughter or even gave birth to such an enlightened child or a baby or anything. But her verbiage was being, and so I have to say that's interesting the story is still evolving, as I hope that she will have a full recovery over the next few months and will be able to speak in the spring at another conference.
Fascinating. Well, we are working on some conferences as a group, so we'll definitely keep abreast of that issue with your mother. We were talking, it's interesting when experiencers speak with each other. I just was remembering that two could not eat the food they were trying to give me. I couldn't drink, they were trying to feed me formula, and I almost died because there was just nothing that would stay down, and they couldn't figure that out. So what I remembered was I was going to give up and just leave, and I wasn't supposed to leave, so I surrendered to eating the food, which I knew wasn't it was toxic. It was on some core level. This wasn't something that I verbalized, in words, but it was an understanding that if I was going to do my mission, why I had come here, I had to eat food. So I started I adapted to it somehow, or they helped me adapt to it. So fascinating. Back to you. Anything else you want to say, Karen, before we go to John?
No, that was really heartfelt, and I have had now the discussion with my mother about her experiences. So, yeah, and then I talked to my daughter. My daughter has had experiences also. So, sometimes in families we're afraid to bring up those things. I'm the one doing it now. And finding, we have a multi-generational psychic family. So as far as I can tell, we've got three or four generations here that have had experiences. But it's only one part of the family. It's just a few members that we've gotten comfortable enough with each other to finally talk about those things. And I'm trying to be, the one to tell my family there's a psychic history with us. It's a very interesting history. So, yeah, sometime, how about the holidays, like Thanksgiving, right? Around the table, that'd be real appropriate. Or Christmas, that'd be a fun present to unwrap your psychic and or alien history. But, I think we're entering a period of time where these conversations are happening. Much of what's catalyzing is what's coming on television, Ancient Aliens, your type of show, this kind of show. Those conversations are starting to happen, and I think it's great because a lot of people have been suffering in silence and isolated even from their family members as to what's happened to them. And so thank you for sharing that story. That was really important. Thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's easy for me to share. And, the organization Free, it was set up for people basically just like my mother. Somebody who can go ahead now and file their experience anonymously if they want, and have a compassionate, understanding person who's also an experiencer be able to sort of walk them through it. All of these different organizations will help. It's important as many experiencer groups as possible start opening, whether you have a professional facilitator or not. Just the fact that they're experiencers together will find their way through, I'm sure. I wouldn't let anything like that hold me back. I think that what uniquely qualifies a person to do it is the fact that they are an experiencer, and that's enough. With that, they can move forward and start a group. That's really all the qualifications I think a person needs. I hope that anyone listening who's ever thought about doing it, to let any other ideas of why you can't just fall to the wayside and look at all of the reasons why you can and just do it. And because it really helps people, it certainly changes lives. And the moment that you do that, people begin to change and they ultimately become better. And I can't help but say it again, I really believe that the whole purpose of the extraterrestrial phenomena is only a catalyst, and I think it's imperative that we don't get too hung up on what the UFO looked like, what type of ET it was, because that might be a dog chasing its tail. That's not really going to get us where we need to go. that's only going to give us a little bit of information. I think we just have to say, okay, yes, they exist. They're either this dimension being or this being, and then move forward from that, taking the next step in putting together the larger picture that we keep saying, and where do we go from here? That's what we have to keep doing. We have to keep asking, and where do we go from here? We see generational abductions. We see that it's grandmother, daughter, granddaughter, so on and so forth. And we know the answers as to why that happens. We know that the abductors in the gray alignment, grays and tall grays, live to be 800, 900, or 1,000 years old. Then they die. They just die. They don't have a consciousness in the same way that we do in terms of it being a soul. So that's why they've continued to create this hybridization program, hoping to incorporate a soul into their consciousness for that very thing, that evolution. Human beings, they're all coming here. All of these different races are crossing the galaxy or moving through dimensions. They're coming to us for a reason, and that reason is because we are magnificent, powerful, unique beings. We are human. Hu is the ancient Egyptian word for light. We still use it in today's terms to measure different intensities of light. They're called hues. Man is short for manifestation, to come into the physical. A human is a light-embodied entity. We are just a consciousness, a soul, embodied, interpreting the third dimension through our senses. Some people use 5, some people use 6, some people use 7. We have that opportunity as long as we don't limit ourselves in the third dimensional paradigm thought process. We have to allow this phenomena to create a consciousness expansion so that we eventually learn how to think and act in fourth and fifth dimensions, where we will have instant manifestation of our thoughts. And so we have to have complete control of them, because otherwise we're harmful. We're going to hurt people. We need to have that ability to think in these terms and know how to act fourth and fifth dimensionally. So what latest workshop I did in September at the 5D event in Los Angeles, I did a workshop on fourth and fifth dimensional consciousness thinking, and it went really well. It was very helpful in giving people an opportunity to see the slight adjustment they can make in their thinking to allow them to a larger way of understanding.
Hey, Laurie, I wanted to ask you about the Fox Channel series Experiencers. You said that they played a trailer, I believe, September 2nd. When is the show going to be aired? I'd love to watch it.
Since the death of Jim, everything has been pulled right now. Sadly, we're not sure where that's going to go right now. I hope that they'll go forward and continue. I know that he worked tirelessly on contracts, and that, we're delayed months in filming for different reasons, this or that. And, so it would be sad to see it end over some type of red tape at this point. But on the other hand, it was Jim's baby, so to speak, and perhaps starting fresh might also be an avenue to explore. I'm currently looking at another project. Another TV show has approached me and would like to do sort of a high-minded documentary on the Experiencers group that I run. But my husband, who's very talented, brilliant in its own way of thinking, he and I thought that we could collaborate and create a documentary of our own that shows the growth of an experiencer and an experiencer group and really allowing non-experiencers to take a look and see exactly what it might be like from a non-exploitive perspective. It's a problem. I get approached almost monthly with offers from New York or London and wanting to create a show, but nobody has really been able to guarantee that they won't exploit the experiencer, and I just can't move forward on anything unless I can protect the integrity and the safety of the group. So I think the only way I might be able to do that is to do the documentary on my own.
That makes perfect sense to me. So not this past year, but the year before, I went to Experiencer Speak 3 conference where I was just an attendee, and that's where I met Ray Hernandez for the first time. There was multiple camera crews there, and they were trying to get interviews from anybody and everybody that they could, and they approached Ray, and Ray said basically the same thing that you said. He said, unless I have some absolutely rock-solid, signed, sealed, delivered, notarized guarantee that you're not going to exploit experiencers and make a big joke out of the whole thing, then I'm not willing to go on camera. And
exactly the way I feel.
And and at first I'm thinking, well, shouldn't you do it? No, actually, I'm glad that he stuck to his resolve, because they weren't willing to give him the guarantee that he wanted, and how Ray is.
They would have exploited it.
They probably would have, and Ray, he used his instincts and his better judgment, and he just straight up declined. And now that, especially after what you said, it made perfect sense for him to decline, and I bet that his instincts were completely correct, that they were going to just make a big spoof and joke out of it, which would have hurt us all.
Yeah, we can't do that. Not now. Like I said, this is a monumental time in history. This is our next full cycle, our last 36,000 years of, it's our opportunity for a true evolution, for that consciousness shift. I personally believe we're in the higher third dimension, lower fourth. That will be in the fourth only temporarily as we move into the fifth dimension. We can only do that if we learn how to have that emotional control and control of our thoughts and become loving, altruistic beings. I heard at one of these conferences some people talking about these ETs, and they were saying that they laugh when the humanity, wants just full disclosure on the extraterrestrial presence. They laugh at that because they know that they think they know that we'll never be able to be tranquil, peaceful beings. They think that we're always going to be, easily instigated and be warmongers. And so with that, they think they can continue coming to the planet and harvesting. Now, there are other ET contactees who say that all the abducting extraterrestrials have left the planet and they're no longer here. But I can tell you that just a few short weeks ago when we had the Sacramento UFO Con Experiencers, a group like Janet was saying, the last one we shared our group and we had a young man come in with his girlfriend and he was in full-on first expression of his experience. He's never had the opportunity. He was still in fear. He was still waking up terrified, clinging to his girlfriend at night, he said, waking up, seeing things, and over-emoting and thinking he was crazy. He was completely raw, wasn't he, Janet?
Right, yes.
Yes. Yeah, he was in the moment, so these experiences were still happening to him. So these things are still going on. Ultimately what we want is only altruistic interaction. We only want to deal with extraterrestrials who have our best interests and their best interest as their forethoughts. If that's not the case, if they can come and offer technology or this or that, we as a species should be willing to wait for that when we earn and deserve it through our own evolution. You know, we can't be given these things because they will come at a cost. They'll come at a cost of our consciousness development and perhaps even our personal freedoms. So we have to be very careful. We have been tricked before. Humans can be easily beguiled when we wave shiny things in front of them and they want what they need to look at instead of what we want, but what our true basic needs are, and begin to have those met among each other. You know, there's a lot of stuff happening on the planet that we can self-correct, you know, prior to a larger connection with other extraterrestrials. You know, we always hear the same questions over and over put to experiencers and to experiencer groups, which is, why haven't the ETs just landed on the White House lawn and made themselves completely transparent? Well, they may have actually at one point done that. There are stories that imply that. But they really can't do that at this very moment. I think that we're not entirely ready. I still think they would have to make announcements like, you know, people of Los Angeles, put down your weapons, because we might fire upon them on one hand. Then on the other hand, we may drop to our knees and act as if we're being saved. Both scenarios are unhealthy. So we need to sort of grow up just a wee bit, evolve into our full human potential, which we are fully capable of once we learn how to check the ego and other things. Vanity and ego are some of the things that are keeping us off the true path. Once we get these things in check, we will be able to have more of an exchange with extraterrestrials. Right now, I think that if it's the abduction that a person is experiencing, then it may be the gray alignment and it's just for a hybrid program for harvesting. If it's contact, then they could be altruistic extraterrestrials looking to really communicate, to help us, to guide us. But it's been my experience that when an ET wants contact with you, they follow the protocol. They always begin with your name. They call you by name. They ask your permission. If they're truly loving, they'll even ask if you're afraid. That's been not only my experience, but other people who have reported pretty similar, where the ET has asked, are you afraid? Do you want to see more? They're giving us the opportunity to say yes or no, you know, and then an initial it's up to us to make the contact. It's up to us to move our minds up and out and beyond and reach that way. We can't always wait for them to give us the hand. It's time now for us to reach out, and that's what the contact is doing. Throughout the summer, every summer, we do what Sky Watches. We organize them, and we go to these fantastic places, and it's usually around midnight. We'll meet there with kind of midnight picnics and astral binoculars and night vision goggles, and we'll do a sky watch. Sometimes we'll see a craft. Sometimes the experiencers that attend will receive messages. But more and more sky watches are happening. More and more groups are doing this stuff, and we're learning a little bit at a time. You know, it's not a subject that should be taken lightly anymore, and it certainly isn't a subject that should be ridiculed. You know, if you look at who's being contacted and who the experiencers are, I mean, it's at every walk of life, doctors and lawyers and judges, politicians, therapists, all types of people are being contacted, just not everybody at once.
Thank you. Karen, are you there?
Yes, I am. I wanted to answer the question as to why do not ET craft land on the White House lawn And that's because since 9/11, there's been a no-fly zone over Washington, D.C., so they know that, so that's why they don't. No, I'm just saying. But anyway, no, it's, basically the feeling I have is that we still treat this as an unknown enemy. And if they don't act right, then they might get shot down. I mean, we got the wrong thing coming over our borders, man. We're going to be all over that. And one ET contact, he said, why would you go down and land amongst a bunch of people who were lunatics with guns? So, we're unsafe. We've been made afraid, by our media and by our military acting in a negative way that it has about these contacts and either denying them or studying them as if it was, doing enemy assessment. So we have cultural issues that figure into this. But one of the things I wanted to ask you about, because we got three members here of the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters, the free organization. I'm really curious. I know my story and I know John's story. Just want to hear your story, how you got involved with the free organization.
Strangely, Ray just contacted me out of the blue. I don't know how he found me, but I started to see these emails come. Every now and then I check my spam. And all of his emails kept going into my spam. And so for about 3 months I was like, well, he's asking about my group and so forth. And so, like I mentioned earlier, I don't really give information easily about that. And so I wasn't very forthright. I wasn't volunteering anything. And then all of a sudden I got this really strange, comforting feeling about Ray. And just as I was feeling that, just when I was thinking about that, it popped up that I had mail in my True Hypnotherapy mail. I opened it up and it was Ray, and I sent him back a letter. He sent me. I sent him my phone number. He called me, and if you've ever talked to Ray on the phone, you know that lasted for hours and hours. And so so on the phone with hours with Ray, and we of course exchanged our experiences, and then the ball just began to roll from there.
I knew that was going to be a Ray story. I knew it was going to be a Ray story because he's a catalyst, absolutely a catalyst for the group. And I was just wondering, I know that you're working on the research side of the box. I've been working on the Facebook, and John's been working on the peer support program and the Twitter account. So there's many different avenues that people have plugged into the group. I was just wondering how you kind of meandered over to that part of the effort and what's been going on.
Well, I see you guys on Facebook all the time. I see Ray's always posting. I think it's fantastic that they've been able to create basically a global movement. I think the movement is really happening when you talk to people like Mary Rodwell and other people on Free. They're trying to create the Liberation Day, which will be, postponed a bit. But this is going to be a global effort. I'm hoping that Free will be able to create a global conference that we can have an experiencers event simultaneously at 5 different cities globally, where we can Skype simultaneously speakers so that we can reach them, even with translators, across the globe. This is something that we have to do without our governments. I mean, this is an organization movement that we have to continuously propel, and I think that we have to look at going more globally and definitely doing a synced internet or Skyped conference, so we can have the conferences like we all attend and speak at, but also have a room where we can do our global Skyping, maybe even have Edgar and Ray, speak at a specific time where everybody can tune in. But it's something that's going to make a difference, allowing people from all across the world to talk about it. Because imagine, say you're in Japan or China or the former Yugoslavia, Serbia. What if, you're in one of these countries and, you don't get the opportunity to go to a group or go to a conference or to speak to other people, that your only interaction is with the very work that you do on Twitter and Facebook. This is what they're getting. This is all they get. There's experiencers, 280 million of them minimum, around the world, who need to have a larger connection. So each and every part that we all play is so equally important in gaining the momentum we need to get everybody on board, allowing. See, when you look at it, where do we go from here? Say we go global, what's the next step? The next step is bringing the mainstream public into it. And that's sort of what we're trying to do with the experiencers groups. That's one of the questions you can ask when you're speaking at a conference by raise of hands. How many people in the room are actual experiencers? Break it down. How many are contactees? How many are face-to-face? How many only perceived it? You can go through my 5 categories even. Because there's even channels. They're still considered experiencers, the ones that have a extraterrestrial speak through them, like Daryl Anka, who channels Bashar, so on and so forth. Who is it? Esther Hicks, who's currently channeling Abraham. They're saying, their testimony is that these Abraham and Bashar are extraterrestrials. So these are a segment of the experiencers that need equal opportunity. Like I said, there are 5 distinct categories. We've only talked about 2 or 3 of them tonight, but each category deserves, its limelight. So because people are being affected. Well, when you look at the lower percentage of experiencers that actually are channelers actually affect a larger audience. When you're talking about somebody following the works, are you both or anyone familiar with Esther Hicks channeling Abraham or Daryl Anka with Bashar?
Yeah, both of them. In fact, Daryl Anka's Bashar was really, really instrumental in my early era of automatic writing and contact. I watched every video I could find and this encouraged me to continue. And I also read the book by Dr. John Klima, who's also working with Free, his book on channeling. That really helped me feel confident that I was getting something that was important that I should follow through and continue doing. So, yes, I am familiar with that.
Yeah, they give very specific messages for humanity that are important. And like you said, we're looking for all the videos on him at the time because he was talking to you at the moment. You were getting what you needed from it. The same with Esther channeling Abraham. These are experiencers that are actually affecting multitudes of people because they both have very large followings. Even though they're the smaller percentage, most experiencers are either, abductees or contactees, or fully integrated where they're up on the ship. Very few are channelers per se.
I have a question too before my turn passes, because I really wanted to. I had a recent experience going to the MUFON yearly meeting for the first time here in New Mexico, and it was in Rio Rancho. I know you know what that is. What has been your experience working with MUFON? Because I've had not exactly the most positive relationship with people that I've met in MUFON when I've gone to various meetings. Being an experiencer, I felt a little bit more like a bug under a microscope, and that my credibility was being questioned because I wasn't running around looking for craft, And I was just wondering if you'd had a little bit better experience with that.
Well, MUFON is, the Mutual UFO Reporting Agency. So they've always been sort of known as the nuts and bolts, sort of craft-oriented type of organization. So they've not really been open that much to the abduction and the experiencer part of it. But I have been rather lucky with them. I've spoken for several different MUFON chapters, and I'm able to give them the information from a couple of different perspectives. I think because I'm a clinical hypnotherapist and I'm on their very own mental health referral list, and I run a group, and I'm an experiencer myself, my information was received quite well. In fact, it was received graciously, and they were very interested, and I've always been invited back to speak to them. And I do speak quite a bit about the experiencers, but I'm able to give them the information in a way that allows them to accept it, because I give a healthy dose of facts with it, certain percentages or so forth, that allow it to seep into their consciousness a little bit easier than them just hearing a full-on experiencer story.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, MUFON, it has its place. There are a lot of people very suspicious of MUFON, it's true. It's been reported widely that MUFON has been infiltrated by both the FBI and the CIA. I've been warned off to be careful several times speaking for MUFON. That hasn't stopped me yet, but... and that's another thing, too. Even in this day and age when all of us here are on the same page and wanting the same thing, I personally have still had a few things happen. I've had somebody take a knife and carve the word psycho on my front door, the meeting of a weekend meeting. So I don't know why that happened. Had somebody use looks like a low-caliber gun, shot out the window of one of my vehicles, smashed out another, had my blog on the power of thought and how to focus and control the mind compromised. I've had my bank accounts compromised. And oddly, on the way into the Sacramento UFO con, while I was driving at 70 miles an hour down the freeway, I completely lost all power. I had no control over my vehicle and had an extraordinarily difficult time making it over to the far right shoulder lane to get out of the way of rushing traffic. It was rather scary. The only time that's ever happened before was on my way to another speaking engagement. So sometimes we don't know. I mean, we go ahead and are very public and want to do this, and then we see people being threatened or intimidated. I've had to have the police involved on a couple of occasions regarding some of the things that have happened, not only to my personal property or home, but in my own office. I had somebody come in saying that they were FBI agent who worked undercover at Beale Air Force Base and knew about a UFO they had in a hangar there. You know, his whole agenda was to get on TV and to create this story. And so I have my own connections and ran him through an FBI agent. It turned out I get a report back, and it's highlighted, capital letters, do not be left alone in the presence of this man unless you're wired and under the protection of law enforcement. So we are all at a bit of a personal risk doing this, but we can never allow it to stop us. I mean, I think we have to look at all of those things as sort of a lower vibrational pestilence and just sort of move above it and carry on without giving it the emotional energy that it desires so much, such as fear and so forth. The whole phenomena is complicated, but again, I think we're getting to a pivotal point where we're about to take that next step. And my truest desire is that we can take it with, personal empowerment and integrity, that all of us together can move forward, even if we don't have all the answers, which we clearly don't. I mean, the phenomena has been happening. If you look at ancient alien information, we see it over thousands of years, 10, 12, some say 250,000. So we get different numbers, but we can see it's been a long time. It may just be that we're at that time loop again. We know our universe is expanding. We know the dimensions, NASA scientists tell us the third dimension is slipping away. We know that this is a time that we have to really step up that evolutionary scale. We have to do it without fear. We have to really be careful that we don't give in to any of the lower vibrational, emotional energies that humans can do so easily, which are the fear or the ego. All of these things seem to come so easy to people, but it's important that we have balance. Just, create a balance in our thinking that doesn't sway the pendulum in one direction too far, staying that kind of middle road. I hope that that's the way we can move together, because if we don't, then there are many contactees that bring grave messages. Not all of it is love and light as we would want it to be. We, as researchers, have to see that there's another side being presented to us, and that is the hybridization agenda, the infiltration of said hybrids onto the, that would be my dog, sorry, the said hybrids onto the planet, that they may be infiltrating for nefarious reasons, certainly not for altruistic ones to serve our higher purpose, which ultimately any contact we have with any ET should be to serve the highest purpose of everybody involved. But some of the messages that we have are that they would like to terraform the planet to create an atmosphere, an environment that is more conducive to their way of life, and that for generations they've been trying to create hybrids, placing them in power to create sort of a global new world order. We can't, as researchers and group leaders, we can't discount any experience. If this is the information they're given, we have to look at it legitimately and see how much of it seems true and authentic, and what we can do with it, what it's really telling us, how we can adapt or change it or incorporate it into our psychological profiling of the ET or whatever is necessary. But because the messages, like the experiences, are very different, everyone has looked at equally. So when we hear them saying that it's only a matter of time before they invade or infiltrate, we have to wonder who and what might be saying that. Then we get the broader crossover of certain lower vibrational entities such as grays. They may be technically advanced, but not so spiritually. And in that case, their only desire to come to the planet would be to consume and move onto the territory, adjusting it. So we have to look at that and ask, what can we do to prevent it if that's the case? And the answers always come back to the same thing, which is really understanding and loving and accepting ourselves and moving together as a whole species. If we're fighting among each other, that just creates a weakness in us that can be exploited, not by only each other, but by extraterrestrials as well.
I want to interject here, because right now you're talking to three people that are very involved with the Anunnaki. Karen and John is getting more involved, and I am getting more involved with the A.R. Borden Linkage Institute. And perhaps, Karen, you can explain a little bit about that information and how that is affecting what's going on here on the planet. Karen, are you there?
Well, yes, I'm here. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love what you were saying. I was really listening to what you're saying about our choices, and also this idea that maybe if we're going to neglect moving forward and raising our vibration and our consciousness as a species, maybe someone else will take over or whatever. I thought that was really good words, because we are at that crossroads. We're kind of making a collective decision, and we don't even really realize it, depending on our everyday action. And when I was contacting, I said that was the last thing I wanted to be was an Anunnaki contactee because all I'd ever heard was these stories of people when they talk about the fallen angels and the Nephilim and all of that. And so I was very reluctantly drawn into this information. But then I was basically shown there was a factional element, that there's factions. It almost got to feel like there was factions in the Greys. I've heard some people have very negative experiences, and others have positive experience. And what I want to say to people, based on that, is first of all, a lot of times when we talk about ET, we say they. Like it's one homogeneous group of they, And as you're saying, is a huge diversity, and there's diversity of intention. And so some of that is not just because they feel negatively toward us. In some reasons, there's a reason they seem negative toward us is because of how we've acted. Our species seems to be kind of a juvenile species, kind of a dangerous teenager, kind of era. And what I got from these two factions from the Anunnaki was the idea that they kind of feel that they're our parents, and that they had two basic philosophies to how to guide us. And one was to let us be what I call free-range humans and to grow and to mature in our own way, because we'll be very unique if we do so. If we're just homogenized into some other species idea of what life should be like, then we will be not very unique, not be the wonderful, unique things beings that we're going to be. And the other side was, these two sides have a different philosophy towards us. And then I got involved in the online group that A.R. Borden had and was able to meet some very wonderful people that have been on the show. And we're all coming together after the death of A.R. Borden to just share with each other what we've learned. And we talk about these same ideas that you're talking about. Each person who has had contact has had a different flavor of some of the same information that you're talking about. But humanity has got its own sovereign right to be. I like what you said about we shouldn't necessarily listen to messages of how unworthy we are. We have a sovereign right to be just the same as any other race. But we've got to grow up. We're coming to the point where we have such an influence on the planet. We need to realize that. We need to realize our planet is alive and has a consciousness. And I see it happening. I do see that a lot of people are asleep. They're just going in what I call the consensus reality show mode, and they just listen to whatever is going on TV and the politics, and they get caught up in that circus of attention grabbing that has nothing to do or little to do with what we're talking about. And I liked what Ray did to decline talking to these people if we couldn't guarantee that they would take it seriously. So I appreciate the fact that you're saying what you're saying, because you seem to have a really good broad view of the issues. And these are the same issues that have come up with the Anunnaki groups. Those of us, we're kind of a groups within groups, because it's kind of like that you turn into a werewolf once a month. There's a little bit of shame involved with the fact that you're not an Anunnaki contactee, because they get such bad press, But to be honest, they're not monolithic in their view of us. But it really is up to us to gain our own sovereignty and recognize ourselves as a species, and to grow up and to join the Galactic, Federation or the Galactic Society. That was the end message of A.R. Borden, is that we're going to leave, Thanksgiving's coming up, so I'm thinking of the kiddie table and the grown-up table. We're graduating from the kiddie table and going to the grown-up table, and to take charge of our own collective, evolution. So right. Your comments are just excellent, right on the spot, as I understand it as well.
Well, thank you. And as far as the Anunnaki go and some of their claims that they are parents to us, well, that very well could be true. I know that I believe that the Anunnaki did come here. I know that they even had a further descendants other than the Nephilim, but the Naga that went underwater. But I know that all good parents want their children to be self-sufficient and able to be socially conscientious to do the right thing, I can assure you that that is what I want for my children, and that's how I raised them. And so with that, I think that sometimes the Anunnaki are not good parents when they claim to be. I feel that they have made some gross and severe errors, but I don't blame them for that because I don't expect perfection from any entity that isn't a God. I know that there was a misunderstanding in the definitions of the word God and the sons of man. And I know that people didn't always get the meanings of the word, and so we worshipped when we shouldn't have. So the Anunnaki, being somewhat prideful as well on their own evolutionary scale of learning, did present themselves as gods. And their intentions may have been for the betterment of humanity, but at this point, I think that we have actually evolved to the larger table, like you say, and that maybe not all of us, we still have children, but not all of us are earthlings. Some of them are earthers now, and we have grown up, and we're willing to, negotiate and learn and love from a higher perspective, that we will be able to act with the greatest of intention, that human beings in our unfoldment is beyond beautiful, and I think the Anunnaki themselves will be impressed. I know that when we allow our minds to move into greater space, I know personally I've experienced a consciousness expansion that is beyond my ability to ever verbalize or articulate. I know that I feel very privileged in the sense that I was shown glimpses of what we ultimately can be, and I believe that we will move into a state of where our planet may be considered golden. I think that we're a garden planet, a beautiful garden planet in a series of garden planets, and that will continue to flourish and unfold in a natural way, that in fact it's our right, it's our human right to be able to evolve without the extraterrestrial interference. We're okay with guidance, we're okay with an exchange of information, but we can't accept any manipulation on any level. And some of us have been manipulated, and so we have to express what our human rights are and what we expect and how we expect to be treated and respected on a galactic level, whether we're conscious of it. And if we are conscious of it, then we by all means have to declare our intent. And if we're not, like there are so many unaware, they're still experiencing, they're still going through the motions, I think that they will get to that point where they will see that we are able to do it, that we have inside of us the answers and the roadmap, really, to our own unfolding, to our full human potential.
Hey, Laurie, we're running out. So I want to let John address the Anunnaki issue because he has written a whole book. And go ahead, John, explain your contact with the Anunnaki and the message that they have through you for humanity.
Okay. Yahweh, the biblical God, is an alien is the title of my book. Once again, Karen Patrick was my editor and publicist, and I'm going to work with her for the rest of my life because she's my guiding light. She's my teacher, and so is Janet as far as that goes. So I listen, I learn, and as cocky as I can be, I temper it with a little humility as a man, and know I can learn from women. It's a hard curve, but I learned. I've learned so much from listening to all of you tonight. But when I first met Karen, I would argue with her about the fact that Yahweh was not Enlil of the Anunnaki, and it took me I shouldn't say a number of years, but perhaps a year for it to actually soak in and be digestible within my own consciousness. So then I asked Yahweh Now, Enlil, why were you masking yourself from me? Because first Enlil came to me as Enoch, and you got to figure he's definitely a key player in that whole pantheon, Enoch, across the world in multiple cultures and religions. First came to me as Enoch, then Yahweh, then Enlil. And Enlil basically told me, he said, you weren't spiritually mature enough to be able to fathom it and absorb it. You just weren't spiritually evolved enough, but you are now. So what Yahweh has been telling me, Enlil has been telling me, is that where he required prayer energy and our souls before by establishing religion across the world, he would establish religion across the world, build stone monuments on geodetic markers that harnessed upwellings of earth energy to amplify our prayer energy. You amplify our prayer energy, and they're often shooting straight up towards star constellations, which is where we all come from anyway. This energy is easily able to be harnessed and utilized in the spiritual realm. And higher evolved creator God aliens, this is an old practice that they have employed not just on this little blue star we call Earth, but all throughout the Milky Way galaxy, Andromeda, and the universe, and even the multiverse. So extrapolate that into, let's say that Enlil has perhaps a few hundred planets where he's established religion and culture and receiving prayer energy. Now let's extrapolate that even more to where he has a few thousand different planets where he's established religion and culture and receiving prayer energy. And when you pray to a creator God alien for your whole life, your soul actually cycles through his version of heaven before it actually goes to the universal God light. So where this made Enlil and other creator God aliens incredibly powerful before by absorbing our prayer energy and our souls, it's now making him weak. And the reason is that the lower gods rule the planets and the underworld, and the higher gods rule the heavens. So where Enlil gained so much strength from us, from our prayer energy and our souls, it's now making him weak because he's trying to make that leap from the little kid table to the grown-up table in the pantheon of gods above him. And so that's a huge premise in my book, is that Yahweh, who is Enlil, is trying to wean us off of him and trying to wean him off of us so that we can spiritually evolve and achieve enlightenment, and that he can spiritually evolve. Because the more we believe that he is the real God, it kind of is almost like a tractor beam that holds him down to the earth, and he needs to let us go, and we need to let him go. And that's a huge message that he and other creator God aliens are actually fighting about in the heavens right now, and they're not agreeing on what to do with us. That's a big premise and talking point in my book, and it's evolved even more than that, but I'm going to save that for my next book.
Well, that's amazing. Well, it's true. Prayer energy is extremely strong and is malleable and can be used for many purposes. But you see, the human being has such a strong energy, heartfelt and mind. The torso energy of the heart combined with the power of thought and the spoken word through prayer. All of these things are, in fact, energetic. Emissions do come from our head. We can measure those on graphs. We know that emotions create a mass. You've all walked into a room of tension you could cut with a knife. All of these things are energy and can be moved in certain areas. And so even a God, I just have to say, who would create religion and culture to receive this prayer energy may have been slightly misguided, because the human being's energy comes from above and moves down. It's not supposed to be sent up. How physics works is energy falls through the crown chakra down into the third eye area, the pineal gland, throat chakra, moving all the way down to the base where it swirls around into the kundalini area, moving back upwards through the spine, hitting the same chakras but from the back. So energy naturally comes down. For us to be directing and sending it to one particular source, either in praise, a worship, or adornment, is actually sort of bleeding us. You see, we should be using that energy to create inner tranquility, peace, and abundance and growth, unity on our own planet. And so I'm hoping that the gods of Anunnaki are understanding now that they don't know what to do with this. That's cool. We know what to do with us. We've now learned our path. We can see the bigger picture. And there's a lot of Earth moms who are seeing, the way to raise the next generation. We're no longer raising soldiers. We're raising sons. We're respecting and honoring the female energy and learning from it. We appreciate Gaia, the life of the mother. Everything on this planet is about the mother. The earth is a mother. Mother ships come here. Mothers procreate. Mother boards and computers hold everything together. Everything on this planet is about the mother. And this is what we have to get all of the gods to respect. We grow human beings inside of us and raise them. It's up to us to give them that. We have to take responsibility. All of the answers on what to do with us are inside of us, and we get there through meditation. We get there through using that energy instead of directing it elsewhere, by bringing it inside, internally, allowing us to become calm and strong in our etheric and our energetic bodies so that we can commune. The Anunnaki may be at this point in our evolution more our equals than our parents, as all good parents want their children to move into that ability of self-sufficiency, where because then they know they're okay. They can take care of themselves now and make decisions. So they make a few mistakes. It's okay. Sin only means to miss the mark. It doesn't mean you'll burn in hell somewhere forever. It means that you have to fall before you walk. And even when you learn to walk, you're going to stumble a few times. And that's just the way it goes. It's not a bad thing. It's something to be embraced and learned from. It's not something wrong or evil or negative. It's something natural.
So we're running the clock out here, and let's see, we have about 12 minutes. If we want to each take a couple minutes, 2 to 3 to 4 minutes, and just kind of summarize and maybe tell our listeners how to contact us. Erin, you're next.
Yes. Well, I really am excited. I really feel, I felt for some time, it came through my automatic writing. Other people have said this, and even Stephen Bassett, who's from the Disclosure movement, he said at one point, this really inspired me. He said the experiencers haven't found their voice yet. Because so far we've had media addressing, what the story of ET is. We've had the wonderful investigative types of people that go out and try to tell us about the craft and propulsion and whatnot, and casework. But the experiencer movement has been, as individual experiencers, we've been slogging through cultural issues and personal issues, and am I going to come out of the closet as an experiencer? I kind of broached that, that experience for myself in 2012. I figured out, if you don't do that in 2012, when would you, right? And I continue to do it, but I've even talked to people who've been in the various other movements about ET who are experiencers, but they're not expressing it. They're not ready because it's okay if they're some kind of researcher, but somehow it's not okay if they're an experiencer. And what I'm hoping, and I'm working with other experiencers, particularly right now with NASA whistleblowers, and people who've had very direct experiences in very high-profile, agencies and whatnot. They're telling me, and my partner Brent, they're saying it's time. Like, they're feeling a sense of urgency. Some of them are getting older. They're running out of time to say something. I did have an 80-year-old gentleman who finally came out on a recording. I was able to get a recording before he passed away. And they're telling me it's time because they're getting older and they don't have much more time. Other people feel a sense of urgency because of our economy and because of our state of our environment. They're saying it's time. And so this feeling is welling up in people, and other people are tired of being ridiculed and tired of being rejected, and they're finding each other for support, and then they're coming out to family members, or coming out to the entire family. And so this is that time now that we're collectively doing this. I believe that the pattern of ET contact is peer-to-peer, that they did try to give information to our leaders, and our leaders kept it to themselves and weaponized it, and so they've gone now with a protocol of peer-to-peer, talking each of us individually in some kind of relationship, and that's very different when it's a relationship. So I'm very excited to see all of it. We're being run off our feet, those of us in the experience movement, trying to keep up with all the people now that are eager and anxious to talk about this. So I think it's great. Thank you so much for the work that you do, Laurie. It's wonderful. Thank you for telling us about it.
Thank you.
John, your closing words.
Okay, Reverend John M. Polk. I'm an international metaphysical minister. I'm a Reiki master teacher. I'm the founder of Wolf Spirit Ministries, my ministry, and author of the book Yahweh, the Biblical God is an Alien, which you can find by going to a website that Karen Christine Patrick made for me, which is johnpolkmedia.com. That's JOHNPOLK media.com, and the book is on sale in ebook format for $10, and paperback is only $15. And I wanted to close by saying, Laurie, you're an incredible orator, and I learned a great deal from you. I took notes researching you, and it's there's a whole lot that we didn't even get to. But I think that the best material surfaced during this 2-hour interview, and it was just an enchanting kind of visit to be able to meet individuals like you through these radio shows. Real quick before I let you go, 2 days ago, I'm on my front porch and I'm meditating just as deeply as I can about something I don't want to get into a lot of detail about. But part of it was the 4 visitors that joined us at the Experiencer Speak 4 conference on August 29th of this year, ironically a full moon. And I was meditating on the one that approached me and spoke with me at length. And I'll never forget the way that he looked. I'll never forget the fact that he played on me what I call alien anesthesia, messed with my ability to remember everything. I was trying to take photos of him. I was trying to follow him into the parking lot to see if he jumped on an aircraft or how he got to and from the venue. And he did the Jedi mind trick on me and perhaps 15 other people. And in talking to these other individuals, we all have missed time and forgot things about the event. But the one thing we all agree on is that we did see the visitors. But during meditating, I'm reaching out to him specifically, and I look up in the sky out of nowhere, and I see a UFO almost collide with a commercial aircraft. And it just absolutely blew my mind. So the more I pray, the more I meditate on benevolent ETs only, the more they come into my life. You know, the first time I was on Janet's show, I saw an insectoid ET in my bedroom on the wall. Mm-hmm. These things are just incredible. All right. Anyway, Reverend John Polk signing off. It was a great show tonight, ladies, and look forward to next week's show.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Karen. Back to you, Laurie. Final words for the show ends.
Well, thank you, Janet, for having me. I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure, Karen and John. I think you're both fantastic and insightful, and I've really enjoyed our time tonight. I would like to say that it is important that we continue to share our research, share our experiences, and create forums for people to come forward. I agree that with Karen that it is at a time where the messages are more peer-to-peer, and even with that, the people that are doing the researching, they don't want to be the experiencer. Even they're still carrying a wee bit of stigma. It still shows you, even with researchers, even when people believe this stuff, it's still difficult to put yourself into that category of experiencers. And so with that, we really have to be very grateful and thankful for the courage that it takes for them to come forward. And that just makes me want to continue to always have the utmost integrity in protecting them against any media that would want to exploit the experience. But hopefully we can create a type of media through conferences and radio shows such as this, where we can direct the information to the fact that reality is perhaps far bigger than people realize, that we are a growing and evolving species, and we know it. We feel it. We know we're evolving. We're having these interactions through meditation, and which is the deliberate act of creating contact, and you will be successful when you do it. Most people will get that information sent back to them as a verification. And when you do experience things like the amnesia, there are ways to help gain further insight and lift that fog and clear the memory through hypnotherapy sessions. It is possible to gain recollection of the words that are spoken and remove the block. I've removed lots of blocks. Some were resistance, depending on the extraterrestrial who placed it. And sometimes I think they may do it to think that they're helping us in some way. But I have figured out exactly what hurts. They're vibrating between our alpha and theta brain waves when they create that sort of dreamlike state where they move into our consciousness. So we are learning, and when we share the information that we have, the more we'll be able to communicate. So I don't want to take up any more of anybody's time, but I would just like to say it's all about raising the vibration and creating a larger arena for consciousness expansion.
Great. Well, thank you very much, all my panel members, John, Karen, and Laurie. Thank you for coming on our show today.
Thank you.
I feel very hopeful, very optimistic after this wonderful show. I always am hopeful and optimistic. I'm a life contactee, and most of my experiences were very pleasant, and those who weren't, that I thought were not, once I got into it, I realized the contact is for my highest good, for myself and for all of humanity. So with that in mind, we're going to work on these conferences. We'll keep you in touch, listeners, and hopefully Laurie and John and Janet and Sasha and all the other people that are involved in this experiencers movement, Ray Hernandez, and the people we meet every day, we will join in these conferences and connect one to another through Skype and broadcasting. All right, that's enough for today. Much love and blessings, and aloha.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Total Wireless Store, where total confidence awaits.
Music powers my morning runs, but data overages slow me down.
Don't worry, you got this with the Total Wireless Store. Just bring your number and get 10 gigs of lightning-fast 4G LTE data with unlimited talk and text for $40 a month.
I'd run to the Total Wireless Store right now for that deal, if I wasn't already here.
Data girl.
Discover the Total Wireless stores and get total confidence. The latest phones, the best network, all at great prices. Excludes TracFone Wireless Inc. brand sports. $40 plan must remain active to keep bonus data after 12/31/18. Terms at stores.totalwireless.com.